So I got to carry my water because 4 years ago I had cancer, and now when I speak a lot, so I need waters. So, but I'm okay now. I mean, this year in December I have my last PET scan, and my friend oncologist says, "Pa, if you survive this last PET scan for the next 30 years, you have other opportunity to die." So I say, yeah, it's very reassuring. Yeah. But anyway, let's start this speech. And foremost, I want to say thank you to the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to see an old friend, 20 some years during the WTO days. So Mary, so it's a pleasure to see you, and it's good to be back. I would say today I'm a bit intimidated by the crowd. You know, you have all these diplomat, politician, think tanker. I like think tanker because the think tanker, I was told that you think without using the tanks. So today we only think and talk, no tanks. The theme of this roundtable is quite interesting. It's forces, multipolarity, and impact on ASEAN unity. It's very interesting. But I would say the theme of the roundtable is more challenging. Surviving multipolarity. It's quite an interesting time in a diplomatic way to describe the world we're in now, you know, particularly with the war in Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East. Last week with the recent BRICS summit in Kazan. But what is more exciting is next month, the election in the US. We sort of like, I wonder which side will win. But that is for the future. We can only expect, depending on where we are, on what spectrum we are of the world. We will hope that one of the two candidates will win. But I'd say, does ASEAN have a strategy? This is something a bit more worrisome, at least for me anyway. I think what we try to get out of this conference, it's about what do we, going to get out in this multipolarity world, and can we be able to defend, ASEAN centrality, and to make sure that the international rule-based order is preserved, and by extension, our centrality and our unity. I also, we recognize particularly Indonesia as a rising, middle power. Well, what's the role of the middle power? And also, I'm coming from a small state. What's the role of small state in this whole game of multipolarism, And can we maintain the ASEAN-led mechanism to navigate through this difficult transformation time of the centuries? Well, I would say multipolarity is not new. I mean, let's face it, go back 200 years ago to the days of the Council of Europe, the Congress of Vienna, because at that time it was the multi-power of the days of that time was France, Prussia, Britain, Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Russia. So it was there. It's nothing new, yeah. But I think the difference is that today multipolarity is quite unique in the sense that it's not even multipolar. It's a multiplex. It's like you go to a movie, you have 10 theater, pick one, So different actor, and each actor have his own interests. and sphere influence to push. It's fueled by globalization versus in the old days where it was basically nationalism, Bolshevism, and democracy, which really is sort of like killing this previous era of multipolarity. But now it's globalization, it's technological advancement, changing alliance. You see alliance, but I'm not even sure that many of these alliances are firm. The rise of emerging economy, it's quite clear. The summit in Kazan is it's something for us to remind that the world is not as straightforward as it is. But the interesting thing is that the level of connectivity, the connectiveness is there. It's very, very different than the old days. We don't have a single nation that will drive or assert its hegemony. But what we see now is a world of connectedness and interdependence. In fact, I would say that it was President Trump, former President Trump, in 2016, that was pretty much pushing for the decline of the neoliberal influence. And in a way, it's sort of like pushed back to the return to the Westphalian principle, where major power adjust their respective strategy and recalibrate their strategic influence. Needless to say that multipolarity is also weakening multilateralism, as seen from the rise of many of the security-driven geopolitical mini-lateralism. So I would say since 2016, the US has basically reconsidered its global commitment. We don't know the next election whether the trend continue or not, depending who wins. But I also say that China is also growing readier and readier by the day to assert its own version of world order. The rise of the middle power, Indonesia is a good one, has significant economic, political, and military capability. So I would say the rise of global south as a whole and the expanded BRICS will accelerate this trend toward the multipolarism. Altogether, I think they are keen to sort of like challenge the traditional dominance of the Western power and reshape geopolitical landscape. And I would say that the fact that the US have intensified the weaponization of its financial system with its long-arm jurisdiction, I see that in the recent summit, the BRICS is pushing to establish also this alternative payment system, which at some point, sometime, somehow, will challenge the primacy of the US dollar. So I would say, irrespective of next month's outcome of the US general election, I foresee the next decade or so, basically the world will be driven by nation state and great power competition. But speaking of our region, ASEAN, I think since the Cold War, many of our early members, Cambodia only emerged after the end of the Cold War. So we can say we were part of that time. But the early ASEAN members have benefited tremendously from the predictable US-backed economic order. And here I look at Mary, ASEAN entry to WTO, it's really the dynamic is changing. China overtake the European Union to become ASEAN largest trading member. Of course, the US still remain the number one FDI investor. But it's interesting to note that for a long while, significant overlap between the US and China interests have enabled many of these countries, particularly ASEAN, to pursue their respective national interests, economic interests, without too much worry about pleasing or antagonizing either one of them. But unfortunately, geopolitically, ASEAN is strand in the fault line of major power interests. It's no different than Cambodia caught between two bigger countries, Vietnam and Thailand, or for that matter, Mongolia, between China and Russia. It's not nice to be a small country, with the exception of Singapore. You're small, but you're rich, you're okay. But it's not nice to be small and poor. I remember in 2017, I was with my foreign minister and we attend the ASEAN foreign minister meeting, and we have a bilateral with Dawn Aung San Suu Kyi. And the first statement she told us, she said, "Excellency, I'm tired of being poor. We have to work harder to become rich so we don't have to receive lecture from richer country." But anyway, so I would say, right now we are right in the middle of the Indo-Pacific competition with the rise of many Indo-Pacific strategy and several mini-lateral mechanisms such as the Quad, AUKUS. It's interesting, I read a few days ago article that Australia may want to leave AUKUS. I don't know. But to be expected, now we see since the end of the Cold War a steady military build-up in the region. Warship, military drills, joint exercise near or in South China Sea. And these things place ASEAN in a very difficult strategic dilemma. I think to many of us, ASEAN centrality came under attack on and off. From the mere reason that the world expects ASEAN to do more, to do the difficult task of resolving many of these contentious issues. But I would say now the concordance of major power will be a difficult task, will be difficult, because ASEAN somehow, somewhere, at some point, we will be asked directly or indirectly to choose side. And maybe not, totally, but in different fields, whether in technology, in supply chain, in production. But we will be asked to pick a side. I would say this dilemma is, deeper than meet the eyes, because we were quite reluctant to choose side, because on one side we welcome with open arms the U.S. investment, the European investment, trade, Japan, but nobody would say no to the Chinese when they come to invest and trade with you. That's a harsh reality. That's a reality that we have to acknowledge. And I like to quote George Yeo, which is an old friend, and he said that it's imperative that ASEAN do not pick side in this great power rivalry. ASEAN need to maintain its unity. It should continue to preserve the ASEAN way of resolving issues. ASEAN will need to adapt fast, or it will fade into a trophy. So this is pretty much how I see our situation. But I think we're now in a period of great transition to a multipolar world that will, for sure, define this century. We can even say that the peaceful and orderly environment in our region for the past 30 years have come to an end. And ASEAN will have to secure its position in this great transformation. Certainly, this transition will not be smooth. I could say that. And all you have to do is to see in the news. And occasionally, it may be accompanied by proxy wars or the form of low-intensity conflict. As I said earlier, China's rise has presented an economic challenge to the West, and it is crystal clear that the US will do everything it can to slow down or to weaken China. As much as the US proxy war in Ukraine was aimed to weaken Russia. But what is interesting in today's multipolarity is that we see the realignment and balance of power without even security treaty or common values. We see that certain countries, in advancing its national core interests, have thought strategic autonomy by leveraging growing relationship with certain power. But strategic competition with major power have also, unfortunately, led to a shifting of significant investment, supply chain de-risking, friendshoring to other countries. So amid this great transformation, it begs this question: to what extent ASEAN be able to defend a stable multipolar world in the Indo-Pacific region without isolating China, and to avoid, as during the Cold War, being once again another theater of conflict? And here I would say the Vietnam War and the Cambodian genocide in the 70s are harsh reminder of this darkest period. In my humble view, I think ASEAN needs to strengthen its intra-bloc solidarity and maintain its common stance if we are to preserve the strategic balance between major power, particularly now as they vie frantically for regional influence and even dominance. Major power compete for military supremacy and strategic control. It's normal. When you're a big power, that's what you want to do. But ASEAN, for our part, we have to be careful to strike a good equilibrium between upholding a principle of neutrality, a principle of non-interference, consensus building, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we can safeguard our interests and autonomy. Issue of territorial dispute, maritime security loom large, and it's quite clear that it will need ASEAN to work hard to get a coordinated and unified response. But it's easier said than done. That's all I can say. Easy said than done. But I think for me, security, even though security is a prerequisite for development, by and large, not all ASEAN countries do consider security concern to be the central factor in the region. In other words, security should not be the only priority. We have consistently resisted the notion that the contest between major power is a zero-sum game. We have managed to reframe this approach to the region into opportunity to promote cooperation and trust. In fact, ASEAN has attempted to de-securitize regional issue, as exemplified by our effort to come up with the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, at a time when many Indo-Pacific strategies were the rage. Secondly, the force of multipolarity have also shaped economic dynamics within ASEAN. From the very beginning, we all know that the ASEAN economic community has been influenced by the competing economic agenda of major power through their massive official development assistance and major infrastructure project financing. Obviously, ASEAN on our own we also boast that we have a lot of FTAs. We have with key partner, we're busy upgrading all these FTA. We're busy coming up with new initiative to enable ASEAN to optimize opportunity arising from emerging trends, like in the digital economy, the circular economy, the blue economy, and for that matter, to deal with carbon neutrality. But all this development is fine, but unless ASEAN can work harder to streamline their complex trade and investment non-tariff barrier and make sincere effort to reduce the economic rivalry to a minimum, they'll be, they'll be in a difficult position, because right now the intra-trade represent only a mere 20%, 22%. So you're nowhere near integrated. The European Union is nearly 50%. We're barely above 20%. And thirdly, I would say it's more political. It's about ASEAN centrality. ASEAN credibility rely on our centrality. But to have credibility, we have to put our house in order first. The crisis in Myanmar is a big setback for ASEAN. Although I would say I recognize several countries who have worked very hard, to find solution to this intractable Myanmar problem. Of course, in a face-saving way, of course. Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, for that matter, we have worked hard to try to find some solution. But ASEAN credibility also is how the middle power perceive us, the major power, the middle power, how they perceive us is through our credibility. But I'd say ASEAN centrality is a bedrock of regional multilateral diplomacy. And it's important that we ask them, the big power, the major power, to continue to support us, not to undermine us. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, ASEAN is the only game in town, in the region. So in my view, ASEAN centrality will hinge on two major pillars, which is our convening power and our normative power. Of course, our convening power is we have a very good ASEAN-led mechanism that we're able to bring the major and the middle power and the small, I cannot say small power, small state, to come together and sit in a round table, in a big round table, a square table, to discuss issue. But it's better to have this diplomat discussing this issue rather than fighting. Although most of the time you don't have a clear outcome from the meeting, but it's better that they discuss each other. And I would say the other one is, aside from the convening power, is our normative power. We have the TAC, we have our ASEAN Charter, but I think we have to continuously try to think to update them. Because I've been working on ASEAN for 12, 13 years. And sometimes it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of the same thing. Sometimes I attend some of this meeting, I didn't even bother taking note. I just put same song, different rhythm. I'm a musician, so I always relate to music, Same song, different rhythm. But no need to write the lyrics. It's the same lyrics. Well, I would say I still believe in all this year following ASEAN that the ASEAN way is our way, is our way how we survive more than 50 years in dealing with sensitive issue, We want to be neutral, but neutrality is not static, it's dynamic. We're evasive when our direct interests are not affected, and most of the time we stay neutral with some minor nuance and variation. Sometimes our response are elliptical, but it doesn't mean that we're weak. And sometimes certain weakness in this multipolar transition, it could be a strength. So, not sure that a certain principle will stay the same. But back to a smaller state, I think not all this world affair and global governance should be dominated by the narrative of the big power. It shouldn't be. Why should they only have the say? Why should they only have the power to have their own narrative? We also should have our own counter narrative. And Cambodia is one such small state. We're post-war. We went through genocide. So nobody can say we did not know the pain and misery of war. And because we know the pain and misery of war, we also appreciate the power of peace. Power of peace. We lost 2 million people in the genocide. In fact, had not been for the end of the Cold War, we wouldn't have a peace. It's quite interesting. Quite interesting. But now we look back, we say, we're a small state, so we have to support the international world order. And that's why when we chair ASEAN in 2022, we made the most difficult decision to sponsor 2 UN resolution to condemn Ukraine, invasion, Russia invasion of Ukraine. And it was hard because after the genocide, it was only Russia who came to help us. Only Russia. But we have to explain to Russia that this is a matter of, international law. So we ask them to understand that we have to stay with international law. So ultimately, it's all about upholding international law and the very principle and purpose of the UN Charter. And when Japan introduced the free and open Indo-Pacific, my prime minister was the first prime minister to support Japan in the FOIP, the first one. And we will continue to support, providing that it benefits peace, providing that it's not used against another alliance. And my prime minister made clear already, we will not join alliance to go against another alliance. We're a small country. We want to be friends to all. One enemy is one enemy too much. And that's how our principle is. But free and open Indo-Pacific principle must respect the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, particularly when it comes to openness, transparency, inclusivity, and a rule-based framework. So I'm almost at the end. I think moving forward in this very contested world, I believe ASEAN need to invest in updating the grouping own institutional capability. Here I'm not talking about more infrastructure, more FTA. I'm talking about a sort of new vision reboot, to re-energize ourselves. The same old thing, the same song, different rhythm. I don't think it works anymore. It worked great when everybody is in love with each other. But I'm not so sure that all of us are in love with each other. So we need a new vision, a new reboot. And we have to tackle our internal division, because the coup in Vietnam, in Myanmar, is definitely something that we have to tackle. And we have to start looking at new ways. We have to start to think outside the box, because the old inside the box, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Let's face it, every year we have an ASEAN summit. We spend a lot of money, a lot of human resource to prepare summit. And, so we want to have some good rate of return also, not just to party, have a nice gala dinner, to visit different province, to see the beauty of a different country. I think we have to start changing the way of doing business a bit, yeah. But it's our ASEAN way, what can I say? I'm just saying what I feel, but I don't think that ASEAN should take that into consideration. But I would say at the end of the day, ASEAN, we're not doing too bad. We're not doing too bad. For a long time, the Western analysts, they've been very critical of ASEAN construction, And when I was working on ASEM, the Asia-Europe, I told many of our colleagues in Europe to say, had you guys follow because they want us to follow the EU way, but I say, no, if you guys follow our way, you wouldn't have Brexit, because you wouldn't be rushing to do a referendum and be stuck with the outcome. For us, no, we don't agree, fine, we push under the rug, we wait for the right timing, the condition is favorable, then we pull out the rug and we discuss again. So, I mean, that's the ASEAN way. And we survived more than 50 years already. What makes you guys think that we're not going to survive another 50 years? So we have to be optimistic that we have something that works. We have something that works. So if the wheel of history can tell us something, is that there are periods of multipolar, there are periods of bipolar, there are periods of tripolar, there are periods of unipolar, and all this polar, the wheel of history, will continue to turn. So until the next shift of the world polar, ASEAN should stay united and continue to focus on building, ASEAN community. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.